May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Pupa of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, preserving the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have a guest. That's Elizabeth Horowitz, Liz, whose husband, Mel Weitsman, abbot of Berkeley ZC and former abbot of the San Francisco Zen Center, died in 2020. I did like 3 podcasts with him that year. He was like 90. Yeah, great guy. And a great Zen teacher, and everybody loved him. And a lot of people were very close to him. And he had a great wife, Liz Horowitz. So we're going to be talking to her. And so as soon as we have our pause to meditate, we'll give Liz a call and see what's up, huh? So when you hear the bell, hit pause, if you're of such a mind, and meditate or whatever for as long as you want. And when you're ready to come back, hit unpause, and we'll be here to hit the bell to end the meditation or whatever. And we'll give Elizabeth Horowitz a call.
Hi.
Here we are again.
Okay.
Yeah. So Liz and I talked first about stuff we're doing together. She's been going through Mel's archives and papers and this and that, and sending Cuke Archives, not just me, but Peter Ford's been dealing with most of it, who I work with. Photos, a lot of photos, and some, papers that she scanned, some old Zen Center board notes. I was only interested in the ones from the Suzuki era, but a little bit 72, I thought. And I could see that first year after he died. Anyway, she wanted to know if I just wanted pictures of people's faces or headshots. And I said, I'm interested in everything.
Oh, okay.
I'm interested in scenery. I'm interested in buildings. I'm interested in people. I want to see what they're wearing, who's there.
Maybe I'll just
close-ups, they're nice. They're nice, but they don't tell a big story.
What? Wait, say that again. What are nice?
I said close-ups are nice, but they don't tell the whole story.
Right. I'll just put a whole lot of them on Google Photos, and you can take what you want.
Well, just make sure you use CC Peter, because he's the one who
I will. Is he a Zen student, or is he a tech
He's
person?
a Buddhist. He's a Buddhist. He's practiced with other groups. I can't even remember which ones. I've never met him. We've worked together, 10, 12 years. I can't remember. And he pretty much is in charge. He's really good.
So do you pay him? Do you pay him?
No.
Oh, so he's doing this as a labor of love as well.
Yeah, he is. extremely generous with his time. I mean, he does, he sets up databases. He knows he's much more. He knows the Suzuki Roshi lecture archive better than I do. I mean, he's, we've been working on it for years. Well, I've been working on it for, 26 years.
So he does this because he's also a Suzuki Roshi disciple?
No. I said I don't know what groups he's practiced with.
Right, but I mean, just informally.
No, he's interested in, Buddhism.
Uh-huh.
Yes, he likes Suzuki Roshi. But actually, we don't talk about that.
Where is he?
Pennsylvania. He was originally in Tennessee.
What a world.
And he was doing stuff for a few Buddhist groups. He's a gift from heaven.
Yeah.
To all of us.
How did you find him?
He found me.
By the way, before I forget, one of the photos I found, I don't know why Mel has this. It's a big photo. It's bigger than 8.5 by 11. It's like, I don't know, 10 by 14 or something. It's a picture of Tony Patchell behind a plow, and I was wondering if Tony has it, but I don't have Tony's email address, so I was going to ask you for it, and I could
just him
about 4 or 5 shelf feet of boxes and folders and I don't know, accordion folders and everything of papers that stayed there for the last 35 years untouched. And I went down recently and I looked at them, and it turns out they're all, well, not all, it's mostly letters to him from students.
Oh.
Pouring their hearts out, many, many, many letters from Lou Hartman, many, many letters from other people. And I thought, well, what do I do with these? Should these go to the archives at Stanford, or what should, and then or should I return them? Now I thought, well, maybe, Lou Hartman, should I send these to his kids? What should I do? Then I thought, wait a minute, these letters are people just pouring their hearts out to Mel. They are not public property. Lou might not have wanted his kid. I didn't read them. I mean, this was like a lot of letters from a lot of people, and I did not. I mean, I read maybe a dozen out of the hundreds and hundreds. And I thought people, Lou and other people might not want these to be read by anybody else but Mel. And so I decided that the appropriate thing to do is to burn them. And
yeah, that's cool.
Yesterday, do you know Susan Moon?
Yeah, sure.
She's an old Zen student from the 70s, been at Berkeley. Anyway, she's in a women's group that I'm in, and she offered to come and help me. So she came over yesterday, and we did a little bit of sort of ritual and burned them in this portable fire pit that I have. And we just sat there for hours throwing these letters into the fire.
That's great, and that's traditional. Did you know that?
Right.
Yvonne came to Tassajara with, I don't know, somebody or some people had to do with some person, and they burned all their papers. Somebody who died, and Yvonne came to Tassajara like with their family or some. I don't remember any of the details. I just remember she came to Tassajara to do a ceremony burning not just papers. I don't know what. It was before we thought about burning.
Yeah, right. Well, of this 4 or 5 feet of shelf space, about a foot of it is taken up by San Francisco Zen Center board meeting minutes. And those we did not burn because they're not personal letters. And but I'm going to just put them in the recycling.
No.
I figure Zen Center has...
No. Don't figure Zen Center anything. Zen Center destroys. Zen Center, things have survived in spite of Zen Center.
You don't think they save any of their board meeting minutes?
Yeah, look, I copied all the board meeting minutes I could find at Zen Center. No, please don't assume that the Zen Center is people with, who have jobs, and they only have times for that jobs. And the general attitude through the years about archives has been, that's been taken care of. And, listen, I could go on and on about that. Archiving has happened at Zen Center because of the efforts of individuals, not the institution. Now, recently they've been, thanks to Susan O'Connell and Charlie Wilson, there's a big push to get all the audio tapes, and 10,000 of them archived and all that.
Digitized?
Yeah. But again, it's because of the efforts of Charlie Wilson, Shundo David Hay, and getting Susan O'Connell on board, who's really is a very effective administrator.
Anyway, I'm doing fine. Keeping busy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, when did you come to Zen Center?
In early 1970. Yeah.
Tell me about how come you came?
Well, when I was a senior in college, which was 1966-67, I had a boyfriend who somehow came upon this little orange book of Zen Parables. And one evening we got stoned, and he read me these Zen Parables. And one of the parables in this book, the one that's very well known, it's the one about the man hanging off a cliff from a vine with lions or tigers at the bottom and rats chewing the vine at the top.
Yeah.
And he sees a strawberry and he reaches over and he says how sweet it tasted.
Right.
That was my conversion moment. And I had been a seeker. I had been a seeker of, trying to search for meaning and but the last place I ever thought to search was religion, because I grew up in a very anti-religious family.
Yeah.
My father despised religion. He was a vehement atheist and despised religion in any form. And my brother and I never had any kind of religious upbringing. We had my father was a scientist. He was a biology professor. And so when I was looking for answers, I looked at in college, in high school and college, I looked in psychology and philosophy and psychedelic drugs, and never occurred to me to look at religion. And I didn't find what I was looking for in any of those places. And then I got involved in Gurdjieff. I was in a Gurdjieff group for a few years, which actually changed my life. But eventually I...
Wait. How did it change your life?
Well, the work, what they call work, which is sort of a form of meditation. Mm-hmm. The work changed my life.
How?
Well, the same way that people say Zazen changes their life, It's just like you experience something that gives you a different perspective on life. But for various reasons, I realized that I couldn't stay with the Gurdjieff group forever. And all this time, I remembered this Zen parable that my boyfriend had read to me in 1966 or 67. And I had always thought that Zen was where the Zen was the real thing. And but never occurred to me that there was any Zen practice in the Bay Area. I was at Berkeley. I was at Cal Berkeley and living in Berkeley, and I just had no idea that there was a Zen master in the Bay Area. And so I got involved in this Gurdjieff group instead. And then in 1970, I picked up this hitchhiker in Sonoma County. You know Mark Gritman?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I picked up Mark Gritman. He was hitchhiking outside of a natural food store, and he looked so sweet and harmless, so I picked him up. And turned out that he's the one that told me about Suzuki Roshi in Zen Center. And I told him I wanted to go there. I wanted to go there. So we ended up having a relationship for not very long, like a month or two. And so one day we were driving around. We were in San Francisco, and I said, "Let's go. I want you to take me to Zen Center." And so he did. And we went for the afternoon zazen. This was on Page Street, of course. And we went in, and I was wearing, I guess it would have been called a mini skirt. It was sort of halfway up my thighs. And so we went to the Zendo, and we sat cross-legged, and I was wearing this very short skirt, and Suzuki Roshi was walking around, I guess probably with a stick, I don't know, but anyway, he tugged at my miniskirt, which I was just absolutely mortified. He reached around and tugged at it. So then we found out that they were recruiting work students to go down to Tassajara for the spring interim. So Mark and I decided to go down and be work students. And we stayed for 2 weeks. And 1970. And Suzuki Roshi was there, and he was lecturing pretty much every night. I think that's when he was giving the Sando Kai lectures. I was actually taken aback by Tassajara and the uptight, severe. I forgot to say that after my boyfriend read me the Zen parable.
That's Zen Flesh, Zen Bones was the book, I would imagine.
No, I actually still have the book. I could run and get it out of my bookcase.
Tell me later. Send me an email.
Yeah, after my boyfriend read me this parable, and I was so interested, I tried reading D.T. Suzuki, but I just could not read him. But what I did read was Alan Watts. I read Alan Watts, and I listened to his lectures every Sunday on KPFA. And so I got my idea of Zen practice from Alan Watts, which was quite unfortunate because it was nothing like what I found Zen practice to be. Um, and so when Mark and I went to Tassajara, I was just taken aback. I really trusted Suzuki Roshi. I felt like Suzuki Roshi was the real thing, and I totally trusted, and I had total confidence in him because he was this old Japanese guy, and so all of the Japanese ritual and Japanese cultural baggage, it made sense that he had it. But I could not understand why we were taking it on, and I was at all the people there were so uptight, and the robes and the shaved head. I was just like, wait a minute, this is not what I thought Zen practice was supposed to be about, according to Alan Watts. I feel like I should go. I still have an Alan Watts book on my bookshelf, and I feel like I should read it again and see how it seems now. Like somehow, maybe, I don't know. Did Alan Watts talk about ritual and all that stuff? And did I just miss it?
Alan Watts liked ritual. He'd been an Episcopalian minister.
Oh.
But he liked the theater, that sort of thing, the theater of ritual. But he didn't write about. He and D.T. Suzuki hardly ever mentioned zazen or meditation, or they're talking about mainly sort of satori oriented. But Alan Watts was brilliant, and he was like a bridge between the East and the West.
Yes.
But you can't stay on the bridge.
Yeah.
And same with D.T. Suzuki.
I'd be interested in looking at this one book I have on my shelf by Alan Watts and see see how I see it now compared to how I saw it then. But anyway, so Mark and I were at Tassajara as work students for 2 weeks, and Mel had just finished being Shuso, and I guess he was the Tanto or the Ino or something. And I noticed
we didn't have Tanto then. Yeah.
Oh.
I don't think.
Okay, well, he was Ino then, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. He was something.
Yeah. I mean, I was there. I'm trying to remember. He might have been Suzuki's Jisha.
Well, maybe, yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, I think maybe so.
But I remember, I have 2 memories of spotting him at Tassajara during this work period when I was a brand new Zen student and knew nothing about Zen Center or anything at all. But Mel, he was very attractive. He had sort of this lean and hungry look, and he was this kind of cool, hip guy. He didn't have the uptight vibes that most of the men at Tassajara had. And so I noticed him, and I really was attracted to him, and I just thought he looked very cool and hip. And then Mark and I, one day, Mark and I were walking down to the Narrows, and somewhere between Tassajara and the Narrows, Mel was across the creek. He was fully clothed. Somehow Mel told this story. Mel got the story mixed up, and he said he was naked when he told the story, but he was not. He was fully clothed, but he was perched on a rock across the creek playing his flute, just like Pan. And I just completely fell in love with him. But I had no idea that he was from Berkeley. I didn't know anything about Zen Center. I thought he was a Tassajara resident. I thought that's where he lived, and I just sort of forgot about him.
Where were you living at the time?
Well, right around the spring of 1970, I had to move out of a house that I'd been living in with a bunch of people because.
Where?
Well, that's another story.
Where?
In Orinda.
Uh-huh.
I lived for a year in Orinda. It was at the home of a famous photographer who was sort of away on sabbatical, and he rented out his house.
What's the name?
Wayne Miller.
Uh-huh, all right.
I had never heard of him, but he apparently was a pretty well-known photographer at the time. And so we were living in this beautiful redwood and glass house on the top of a hill in Orinda, and then we had to move because he was coming back from his sabbatical. And so I was just staying with a friend in Berkeley, and I needed to find a place to live. I was staying temporarily with a friend in Berkeley. And when I started, so after Mark took me to San Francisco Zen Center, the year before, or sometime in the late 60s, after I graduated from Cal in 1967, so there were 3 years intervening.
Cal, which school is Cal?
UC Berkeley.
Oh, okay.
So in those during those 3 years, I worked in several different departments at UC as a clerk typist, and one of the departments I worked in was the Department of Architecture and Urban Planning. And Debbie Madison was a graduate student there at the time.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and I have no memory of how I was talking to Debbie Madison sometime in the late 60s, and here I'm just a clerk typist typing up whatever, and somehow the subject of Zen came up, and she told me there was a Zen center in Berkeley, and on a little slip of paper about 2 inches, a little 2-inch slip of paper, she wrote down the address of the Berkeley Zendo, and she wrote down Zazen at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I slipped that piece of paper into my wallet, and I carried it around for years, but there was no way I was going to get up and show up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know if there was afternoon Zazen or Zazen instruction at that time or not, but she didn't tell me about it if there was. She wrote down the address and 5 a.m. So I carried this slip of paper around in my wallet, and then after Mark introduced me to San Francisco Zen Center, and I fished this piece of paper out of my wallet, and I started sitting at the Berkeley Zendo. And Jed and Maria Lindy were living there because Mel was living at Tassajara. He had left the Zendo in the care of Jed and Maria Lindy.
Yeah.
And so Jed told me about this house of Zen students about, I don't know, a half a mile or a mile away. And I was looking for a place to live. And so I went over there, and they had a room for rent. So I moved in. And this was, do you know Jeff Broadbent?
Yes, certainly.
Jeff Broadbent was living there, Peter Overton, Ann Overton, Pam Chernoff. I can't remember. Those are the only people I can remember. And then there was and Paul and Barbara Rifkin came through when they left. I think they had been at Tassajara, and they came through. I don't know if they stayed very long, but so anyway, so I was living in this house, and it was very uncharacteristic of me to sort of jump in with both feet into this community and this practice. My style is more to sort of stick one foot in and kind of hang around the periphery and little by little, and not to really jump in all at once.
Yeah.
But because of my situation where I needed to find a place to live, and here they had this room for rent, so I just jumped in. Yeah, Peter and Anne. Peter came out first, and then Anne followed him. They're twins.
Yeah, right.
And so she came out after. I don't think she was there when I moved in, but Peter was there, and Jeff and Pam. And I can't remember. There must have been somebody else. But anyway, so it was this house full of Zen students, and most of us were sort of marginally employed, and we used to sit around. We were all sort of obsessed with Zen practice and Zen, and we would sit around talking all day because we were all barely employed. And Peter Overton was the only one who would go off to work every morning. He was a potter, and he...
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he threw pots, and he supported himself making pottery, and down at the Potters Guild, and he would leave every morning and go to work and come back in the evening. But the rest of us just kind of hung out and shot the breeze all day, or a big part of the day. And there were various, sort of Zen groupies and hangers-on that came through, and so that was that house.
I want to ask you, you mentioned Peter and Ann Overton were there, and who else did you say?
Jeff Broadbent.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And Pam Chernoff, you remember her?
Oh, yeah. She died 35 years ago.
Yeah, she died really young. That was awful.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't remember. There must have been, seems like, I don't know. I can't remember if there was somebody else there or what. I don't know. Those are the people I remember.
You mentioned Rifkin. Oh, I forgot about them.
Paul and Barbara Rifkin. I think they came through. They had been at Tassajara.
Uh-huh.
The reason I know that is because I love this story. I remember we were hanging around, and Paul and Barbara Rifkin were there, and they had just come up from Tassajara, and there were just a bunch of us, the people that lived there, and then these sort of groupies and stuff that would come in, and we were all just hanging around, and somebody, I don't know who, asked Paul and Barbara, this was, this love, peace and love, culture of the hippie love culture, and was, and so somebody, one of our group, asked Paul and Barbara, said, I guess whoever it was had been to Tassajara for a little while, maybe as a work student or something, and then they said, why is it that, you don't feel any love at Tassajara? Or I don't know how the question was asked, but it was something about this lack of this feeling of love at Tassajara. And Paul Rifkin, he kind of thought for a minute, and he said, oh, there's lots of love at Tassajara. It's just that it's expressed as hate. And I just love that story. That's So anyway,
I ran that dining room there for 4 years. And even when I didn't run the dining room, I dealt with guests. And one of the most common questions was, why is everybody so uptight?
Yeah. And what was your answer?
I'd say they're busy. They're tired. They're getting up real early. And they're involved with Zen. And a lot of people get into Zen because they're unhappy and disturbed. And a lot of depressed people get into it, and also people who aren't real sociable, who are more reserved. But I said they don't mean to be uptight. They're just they're just
uptight.
They're occupied. They're occupied with their jobs and their schedule and whatever. But there were always plenty of people who weren't. You know?
Well, somehow to me, Mel stood out among them that spring.
Yeah.
So there I was living in that house, and we would all get up at 5 o'clock or before 4:30 every morning and pile into a car and go down to the Zendo and sit. And I think there was breakfast in the Zendo every morning. Was it?
Is
every
that
morning?
right?
Or maybe I'm not sure. Maybe it was once a week. Maybe it was one. I don't know. But anyway, whatever it was, I was there. And I was sitting 3 sittings every day, and
whoa, 3 sittings, 2 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was Monday through Friday, and then Saturday morning we would all pile into a car and go over to San Francisco and hear Suzuki Roshi or whoever was lecturing and sit whatever the schedule there was on Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
So.
I can tell you the schedule. It was 5 a.m. Zazen, 5:40 Kinhin, 5:50 Zazen, 6:30 service, 7 clean, soji cleaning, and then breakfast, and then a work period, and then lecture.
Well, yeah, it's possible. I don't remember, but it's possible we didn't go over at 5 o'clock in the morning. We may have just gone for a lecture. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I just know we all went every Saturday to hear Suzuki Roshi or whoever was Katagiri or whoever was lecturing.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I was doing that despite all of my conflict, my reservations and conflicts about this Zen practice that turned out to be so burdened by Japanese cultural baggage and rituals that I just had not expected. It was sort of my koan is, what is this about? This is not what I was bargaining for. But I just threw myself into it. And then, part of it, I know one of the reason that I kept on, threw myself in it, because I really believed in Suzuki Roshi. I really trusted him and believed he was the real thing. And so I just kept at it despite all my conflict.
Do you have any particular memories of him? Did you have any dokusans?
I had one dokusan with him, and I only have sort of a vague memory of it. That I think it must have been during Ruhatsu Sesshin in 1970. And I don't know. I was scared and didn't know what to do, and I didn't really feel like we had connected. I don't know. I read, like on Cuke, I read these stories of people having dokusan with Suzuki Roshi and feeling like he saw into their soul and changed their life, but that was not my experience of the one dokusan I had with him. So, my main personal encounter with Suzuki Roshi was his tugging at my miniskirt the first time I showed up there.
But you said there was something about him that kept you there.
Yeah, it was, because I went to a bunch of his lectures from spring of 1970 until he stopped lecturing because he was so sick. I mean, I went to all the lectures he gave when I was there during interim, and then at San Francisco Zen Center. I mean, so I don't know how many lectures of his, but so it must have been mostly the lectures that really, that was my main experience of him. Yeah, so I just really trusted him and believed in him. And like I think I said this already, that because he was this old Japanese guy, the Japanese cultural baggage and ritual made sense for him to be doing. I didn't have a problem with the fact that he was doing all these things. What I didn't understand is, like, why were we doing these things? And then especially after he died, it's like, well, why can't we just carry forth the kernel of Zen practice without all this cultural baggage? I never could figure that out. I still haven't figured that out. It's still an issue for me. But for him, it didn't bother me when it was him, because that's who he was. So anyway, so I threw myself into Zen practice in Berkeley, and one day I was Jikido, so I went over to the Zendo in the middle of the afternoon or something to be Jikido. And I walked in, and there was Mel. And I was like, I remembered him from, when I'd seen him at Tassajara, and I was just floored to see him there in Berkeley, because I had no idea that was his place. And this shows you my really, really, really bad social skills. But when I laid eyes on him at the Berkeley Zendo, my first words to Mel were, "What are you doing here?" And his words to me were, "I live here." And I was absolutely floored. He was only visiting. This was during the summer of '70, and he was just visiting. He was there for a couple of days. But anyway, so that was my first. I didn't know that. I thought Jed and Maria were I thought that was their place, and I didn't know anything else. So, eventually, about a year later, so then eventually Mel moved back to Berkeley, and then about a year later, we became lovers, and I was always very upfront with him about my conflicts about Zen practice and about how I was not looking for religion. I was looking for, answers and a practice, but I was not looking for religion. And we had a lot of talks about, why are we doing all this Japanese stuff and ritual, and he was very accepting of all this. But I had it really offended me. Bowing to Buddha really offended me. It was like worshiping this idol. I felt like, if we were in a circle and bowing to each other in a circle, that wouldn't have offended me. But somehow bowing to Buddha at the front of the Zendo just really offended me. And I really struggled. I mean, I just struggled with that for years and years and years and years and years. There are only two things about services or rituals, only two things that I felt at home with. One was is the Heart Sutra in English I felt at home with. And the only other thing that made sense to me and I felt at home with is the full moon ceremony, which I love. I haven't been to one for years and years and years, but I love it. But other than that, I just couldn't stand all this service and and so after 5 years of being a total Zen student, including that year and a half that we lived at Tassajara when Mel was director.
Yeah, that was right after I was director.
Oh, I didn't realize that you had been the previous director. Or maybe I realized it then, but I know you were there. You were still there.
Wait a minute.
Mel was...
Well, maybe Mel was the previous director.
We came down in 72.
Oh, yeah, Mel was the previous director.
Oh, so you were his successor.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that was the year that you had to spend a year not speaking.
Well, yeah. Well, 6 months.
Yeah. So we were there then during that time when you were not speaking.
Oh, he was director then.
Yeah.
Maybe Arnie was director before me. Yeah. Yeah, Arnie was director before me.
Was it Dick Baker that told you to not speak for 6 months?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. Because he allowed me to sing.
Right.
And I wrote like 50, 60 songs in that period. And yeah.
Wow.
And I didn't use singing to communicate. I just wrote songs. And I grunted a lot. It's I wish I had it to do over, because all I've ever heard about it was the noisiest vow of silence anybody ever heard. Later, I had to not make any sounds for a week because I'd hurt my vocal cords singing, and I was going to be doing some recording, and I didn't make a sound for a week, and that was better. Oh yeah, that was cool. But anyway, I learned a tremendous amount not communicating through talking. I found out almost none of it's necessary. And I got a great deal across. Without it, I was work leader. I was running. I'd have, work meetings with a zillion people and having to assign them right away, especially like in Sesshin. And
you did that without speaking?
Oh yeah, I had an Etch-a-Sketch, but
That must have been when I was working in the kitchen, because I don't remember those work meetings. I worked in the kitchen for quite a while when I was down there.
No, this was in the city.
Oh, in the city. Oh, wait, you did it again?
No, 72 in the city. I didn't do it at Tassajara.
I remember you being at Tassajara when Mel was director and not speaking. Maybe it was, maybe you just came down for...
Yeah, I came down for visitors. Or, who knows? Anyway, I was work leader the whole of 72.
In San Francisco?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I have a very clear memory of you being at Tassajara and not speaking.
Well, then I came to visit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, just goes to show how inaccurate memories can be.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's the spirit that comes through. So,
Yeah.
so you're down there with Mel, and what else? You got a good memory.
Well, that's what you think.
Yeah, that's good enough for what you're doing. What year were you born?
1945.
So we were both born the same year.
Ah.
So, well, how did things progress then? Anyway, we were with Mel at Tassajara. Any specific memory or anything back then? Anything you want to say?
Well, I worked in the kitchen for a long time at Tassajara, and then I worked in the garden. And I remember we had a 4th of July party. I can't remember if this was the first. I think the first summer we were there, but I could be wrong. I think that we had a 4th of July party at which we had beer.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
You heard about it? You weren't there for it? Oh. So then the second summer, we were going to do it again. And we had this dance party in the barn.
Wow.
The lower barn. We had a dance party with, I guess it was it must have been records. I don't think, we didn't have a live band. We had records and a dance party and beer. And then the next summer, we wanted to repeat it. And Mel said that we could. And somebody ordered a keg of beer or something. And then Dick Baker found out about it, and he forbade us to have beer. And I don't remember the details. I don't know. Maybe you know this story better than I do. But I remember, like, the keg of beer was on the road on its way to Tassajara. And Dick Baker said, you can't bring it in. You have to stop. You have to, I don't know. And I don't remember. I don't remember now if we actually ended up having beer the second time or whether it actually did.
Well, if Dick said not to,
hijacked.
I bet you didn't. Are you kidding?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
He was the habit.
Yeah.
People didn't go against him like that.
Well, Mel did. That was one of Mel and I were the only two people at Tassajara that were, what should I say, skeptical about Dick Baker.
Oh yeah, but that's different from if oh come on, the only two that were skeptical. That's hard to believe, but that's different from when he says, no, you shouldn't have beer.
Yeah.
And then
have you
going
heard this
and
story?
doing it.
Do you know?
I don't believe it.
Have you heard this story from other people? Do you know?
Well, what story? What's the story?
The story about the beer being on its way to Tassajara and Dick saying that you have to stop it and not take it in. And
no, I never heard this.
Oh.
But you're not completing it. So what happened?
Well, that's what I don't remember. I don't remember. I suppose it probably didn't come in, and we had a dance party, but no beer.
Well, there were no cell phones being used, so it would have had to have arrived if it was on the way, unless they stopped it at Jamesburg. And we didn't have the Jamesburg house yet,
or unless somebody drove up the road and stopped the vehicle. I don't know. I don't remember.
All right, didn't happen. I didn't allow alcohol when I was director, except if it was being done surreptitiously. But officially, I'd drink with the guests and stuff like that. But to have alcohol at a party, that was
When you were director, did you have parties on the 4th of July?
I can't remember. I've never been a big party person, actually. I've been a big alcohol person, though. So, like when Diane and I got married at Zen Center in '73, we didn't have alcohol at the wedding, and we could easily have had champagne. They did that, but
we had champagne at our wedding at Green Gulch.
Yeah, but you all aren't drinkers, so you know. So I don't know.
But I mean, they allowed it.
Yeah, of course they allow it. You could have champagne at a wedding. I don't know if that continued, but I said I didn't want it at our wedding.
Huh.
Yeah.
Had you stopped drinking entirely?
Oh, I haven't had a drink since 2004.
Oh.
Our early social contacts and really the basis of our social relations with Westerners here is through AA and 12-step stuff. And I don't do it, but Katrinka is like she runs meetings and stuff.
Oh.
I'm happy not to drink, but I don't want to go to meetings. I go sometimes to if there's special guests, somebody's, they have meetings where people tell their story, or, I'll go as a guest. So anyway, you had beer. I've heard about that. I can remember somebody saying the first time they came to Tassajara was that July 4th, and they go down and there's like a big party going on at the pool with beer, and it wasn't what they expected.
Yeah.
The biggest alcohol event at Tassajara was Ed and Meg's wedding. And that was in 70, I think. Yeah, that was in 70, the summer of 70. And that was Meg's father had brought in just case after case of champagne, and everybody got drunk. Suzuki Roshi got drunk. And he just goes to sleep, or he just went to sleep when he drank. But, people were up all night. And that was the end of that. It was fun, though. There were pretty extreme event. That was the most extreme thing I ever saw. But there was nothing terrible happened. It was just very out of the ordinary.
Yeah, right. Another memory I have from Tassajara, which I'll tell you because you said that you edit out things that you don't think are appropriate.
Appropriate?
Right? To go on.
No, the only thing I'll edit out is if you start dissing somebody and telling nasty things about somebody. But I don't.
Well,
but go on, tell it.
Well, this is dissing Dick Baker.
Well, that's all right. He was a public figure.
So when he got this, we were at Tassajara when he got this notion to buy Green Gulch. And a lot of us thought it was a bad idea because, up until then, Zen Center was not this big institution with lots of properties.
Yeah.
And so I spoke to a lot of people I spoke to several people. We talked about this idea that he wanted to buy Green Gulch, and we all agreed we did not like the idea. We didn't want Zen Center to be, taking on this big debt and have to do much more fundraising and all this. And we all, several of my friends that I spoke to, all agreed with me that they did not like this idea. So then Dick came down and had a meeting about this to tell us about the plan and to get feedback. And I knew that a lot of people did not like the idea. And nobody spoke nobody objected. Nobody spoke their objections except me. I raised my hand and I said what I thought, and I expected some of my friends to back me up. And nobody did. Nobody said a word. I was just sort of hanging out there all by myself, knowing that there were all these people that agreed with me, but nobody said a word. And I just felt so, I don't know, abandoned, not betrayed, but just,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just so disappointed and pissed off that they had just let me hang out there all by myself, and nobody spoke up in support of what I had said. And I just remember leaving that meeting just so disillusioned.
Well, what was Dick's response?
I can't remember. I have no memory.
Well, that's not a bad story. Good Lord. There's nothing to...
Oh, well.
Good Lord, are you avoiding telling anything slightly negative?
Well, I don't know. I haven't, yeah, no.
No, you're not, because you've expressed very eloquently your distaste with the taking on the costumes and you know, the various stuff from Japanese Buddhism. You've been very clear about that. Well, you know what? I wasn't on the board then, but Nils Holm was on the board, and he told me that everybody on the board was against buying Green Gulch. So Dick certainly heard it there, and so Dick forced it. And
well, Niels was at Tassajara.
Well, it doesn't mean he can't be on the board.
Oh. Okay.
And because I remember him telling me that. And I've spent some time with Dick in Germany, which I've really enjoyed, incidentally. It's so unuptight there. It's really, I feel more comfortable in his places, like especially in Germany. Then
does he have a Zen center there?
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah, he's been his basic group has been in the Black Forest, and he's got Creststone in Colorado. Anyway, they have this place Johanneshof, which I think. Anyway, it's a sort of, it's a building that was built for communal practice. Rudolf Steiner Group, or no, maybe I don't know. Maybe it was Rudolf Steiner Group. I can't remember, but it's really nice and it works very well. And there's this the houses there. It's you know they're just little hamlets. They're like barns. They're built around a barn, sort of, or there'll be a big opening. So a place right next to it it's this big house with you know, gardens and stuff around it, and a whole big area down below that was a shop. It was a woodworking shop. It's large. Anyway, the guy who owned it, it came up for sale, and Dick wanted to buy it, and he had the same thing happen as with Green Gulch. Everybody said they can't afford it. They can hardly keep up with Johanneshof, and he said the group won't survive without it. You know, the forum is too small, and I told him, I said, you're doing the same thing with this you did with Green Gulch here. You're forcing it on the community. And it's worked out very well, incidentally. And I've been there since that happened.
Well, green gulch has worked out well too.
Yeah. Well, Dick's, he's got an imperial style.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's, I don't know, he's like a conceptual artist sometimes. And he doesn't tend to, he's a micromanager. He wants to do everything. But he's done some great stuff. But he's managed to hang on in Dharma Sangha. He's mellowed out. He's older. He's 85, 86 now. And he gets along well with people. And he's got this wonderful woman. I did a podcast with her. It's very good, Nicole, and she's young too, who's his successor to be abbot of both Crestone and Johanneshof.
Oh.
And she's.
Oh, is she German?
Oh yeah, they're all German. I mean, he has American students. Well, that's not true. Paul Rosenblum is like an assistant abbot at Johanneshof, but he lives half time.
Oh, really? He lives in Germany?
He lives half time there, or a little less than half time. And
I'll be darned.
yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah. Well, I like that story. You got anything else you thought was not appropriate?
Well, yeah, I do have one other story that's kind of a dissing Mel and Reb.
All right, do it. Let's hear it. They're public figures.
When Mel and I went to Tassajara for him to be director, when we arrived, we went to the office to find out what cabin we'd be in, and Reb was there, and Mel and Reb couldn't stand each other at that time.
Yeah.
And they, I remember nothing about the exchange, but they were so nasty to each other. And I was just standing there, and I was thinking, these are two Zen priests, and I just felt like, oh my God, get me out of here. I was just so appalled at the way they spoke to each other. It made an impression on me. It's one of the few moments that I still remember in my arrival, and I just wanted to run for it and leave.
Yeah.
But obviously I didn't. But and then after many decades later, or a decade or two later, they made their peace with each other and learned to work together. But that moment was just appalling to me to see these two grown men, Zen priests, speaking to each other the way they were.
Well, they got older.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really helps getting older, huh?
It does. Yes.
Lou Richmond's really focused on aging as a spiritual practice. He has a book named that.
Right.
And he got hold of me about this something that Suzuki wrote. She said, we practice Zen so we can enjoy our old age. And I said, yeah. And I told Lou, I don't know where it comes from, but I distinctly remember it. And it might come from Lou. But it's quintessential Suzuki Roshi. But incidentally, he would say many things we practice in. But another type of aging thing, he said, so we don't have regrets when we're older. But he could have, he said many, many things. And it was like the most important thing. Most important, I have on Cuke.com, I think around 167 most important point and 167 most important thing.
I mean, that different people said was the most important
No,
thing?
that Suzuki Roshi would say the most important point about Zen is so-and-so. So we had there over 300 different most important points.
I need to look at that. I'll take a look at that. Is that a title of a section that I can look up?
Oh, use the site search box. Look, I'll go to it now. That's how I relate to.
You've compiled them all together in one.
Yeah.
On one. Oh, okay.
And they need to be updated because they keep getting new lectures added. Let's see. I'll put here most important. I'm just writing it in the site search box on Cuke.com. The phrase most important from Shunryu Suzuki lectures. They came up on top. I don't know where it is. I don't look for things logically much. I do it through search. And when I'm working on the website, I like to keep it open online and find things online because I can do that quicker than I can do in my computer.
Speaking of Cuke, I noticed when I was poking around on there a couple of weeks ago or whenever, I don't know, that I noticed two things. One is that Mel is not listed on your memorial page of people that died.
I don't keep it up to date. But just send me an email. Anytime you notice them, just send me an email.
Oh.
I haven't kept that memorial.
And then the other thing I noticed on, I guess maybe it's sort of some sort of table of contents, or I don't know, some list of people or something where you just have this short 1 or 2 sentences about who Mel is. And you identify him as the abbot of the Berkeley Zen Center, but on a couple different pages, but you don't mention that he was actually also the abbot of San Francisco Zen Center for 7 years.
Oh, come on. It wasn't mentioned in one spot. There's an enormous amount about Mel.
Oh, yeah. No, but just on a list of people where you say who this, I can't remember what the page is.
Well, maybe at the time, no, that's true. Incidentally, I was quite heavily involved with making him the abbot. So it's not something I'm not aware of. All right, here we go. Sojun Mel Weitsman, his main page. Second line, Mel was the abbot of the Berkeley Zendo. You're right. Okay, well, send me an email. That's all you have to do. Then I'll have something to remind me. I spend usually a couple of hours every morning taking care of things that come in emails.
Oh, wow. Oh.
And I'm up for a couple of hours before I go online. I clean up some and meditate and do some things. I don't have any Japanesey stuff. You'd approve of my style. I've never kept Buddhas. Everybody else keeps Buddhas.
Yeah, not me.
Yeah. I've never, they're fine, but people are into that. Suzuki Roshi was into it. Dick Baker's into it. I loved it. I did an interview with Earl Hartman, who's like what's the conservative?
He's a Hasid. Is he a Hasidic Jew?
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, very fundamental. And he's going,
yeah.
I tell my mom, you're an idol worshiper. She says, no, you don't understand. It's as simple. Mom, you bow before idols.
Yeah, well, I guess I have to agree with Earl.
Yeah, I thought it was so great. Well, I think
so funny that they have one child who's a Hasidic Jew and another child that's a porn star.
Now wait a minute. They have 3 children.
They have four kids.
No,
they have 4 kids.
No, you didn't let me finish the sentence. They have 3 kids who are, I wouldn't say Hasidic. They're conservative Jewish. What's that? What's the different things? Conservative, Reform,
Orthodox.
They're Orthodox. They have 3 Orthodox kids, and
3? Is Trudy Orthodox?
I think so. I think her husband is, and so she is.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. It's there's and
she certainly wasn't when she was a Zen student.
No, it happened later.
Oh my God! So 3 Orthodox Jews and a porn star.
Yeah, they didn't become Orthodox when they were, I don't know. But listen, Earl is also a Kudo master, a Japanese archery.
Right.
And has a dojo, a practice center or something. I don't know exactly what. I've got that on Cuke.com, but I can't keep up. I can't remember everything.
That's such an interesting juxtaposition of being an Orthodox Jew and a judo master.
Right. And Mitzi, became a quite well-known porn star, Nina Hartley, and I've had contact with her, and actually when she broke up with the couple that she'd been with since she was a teenager, I think, who got her into all of it, they got hold of me to mediate, to try to
mediate with her.
And this was
her partners.
Yeah, this is in the 90s.
Yeah.
So they'd been together for decades or something, and they got hold of me. The woman did, and asked if I could help them mediate with Trudy. They were heartbroken. And, Trudy was on the cover of U.S. News and World Report.
Wait, Trudy or Mitzi?
I mean, Mitzi. Sorry. Mitzi. Getting the names.
She
Mitzi
was on the cover of U.S. News and World Report?
I think that magazine. Yeah, but it was a thing on the porn industry. It was bigger than the regular movie industry. And also, she was a sort of spokesperson for it because she's so articulate. And she'd go to colleges and give lectures. Rick Levine's sister, Gloria, heard Mitzi give a talk somewhere like Sonoma State, somewhere in the Bay Area, and she was naked when she gave it. Anyway, she's a trip. I always liked her a lot. I thought she was so funny. And she was, had pigtails and horn-rimmed glasses, but she was funny.
Yeah.
We worked together.
I would see her around Berkeley, and when she was a porn star, and she would be wearing denim overalls and pigtails and no makeup, and so she was unrecognizable. Nobody knew that this was Nina Hartley when she was just walking around Berkeley.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. I'd like to do a podcast with her. She'd probably do it.
She had Mel did some mediating between her and her parents at least once, maybe more.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because her parents had a hard time with her career choice.
Well, yeah, but she couldn't have had better parents for it. I mean, they adjusted. Well, you know what Blanche told me, and this wasn't right of Mitzi. Blanche told me that she learned that Mitzi was in the porn business when there was a 2-page spread on her in the Chronicle.
Oh.
It might not have been a 2-page spread. That might be my memory. I can't believe a 2-page spread. No way. It was she read it in the Sunday Chronicle. There was a big story on Mitzi, on Nina Hartley. And Blanche was at Green Gulch. And
that's the first Blanche heard about it?
Yeah, Blanche told me that. Now, when I say she was at Green
God.
Gulch, she might have told me that at Green Gulch. But
oh my God.
Anyway.
Oh my God, as a parent, I just well, yeah, I know Mitzi was in nursing school about the same time I was.
Oh.
And she wanted to be a midwife, but she put herself through nursing school doing porn movies. And then by the time she finished nursing school, she decided to have a different career.
Yeah, she got into it. Like, she made sex education, graphic sex education films. And, yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I wanted to visit with her in LA. I was talking to her, but I had my son with me, and he was a minor, and she couldn't have minors in her home.
Oh.
And
is she still married to that guy? I remember we went to. I think we went to her wedding, or if we didn't go to her wedding, we went to the reception.
At the city center, or?
I remember going to a reception at Greens, I think.
Oh, at Greens.
But, is she still married to that guy?
I don't know. I haven't been in touch with her in a while. But talking to you about her makes me want to. I can, but we'll see. Anyway, I always liked her. I'm sure her careers had taken a toll on her. Just the people she must have to be around. She's
well, I think she aged out of that career a couple decades ago.
Yeah, no, but there's still roles in it, and she had sex education stuff and different things like that. And All right. Well, you were a nurse. You became a nurse.
Yeah, I went to nursing school in the early 1980s, and I graduated in '85 when I was 40 years old. And then I worked for 26 years as a nurse.
Wow.
And, I mean, there's a whole story about that, about how I ended up deciding to go to nursing school, which was totally not on my radar at all, ever.
Well, hey.
But, what?
I had musicians arrive 15 minutes ago. And they're eating lunch.
Okay.
And we start practicing in 11 minutes. So let me call you back.
Yeah. When do you mean?
I don't know. Not today.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have too much more to say.
I know, but we could wrap it up, and I really need to go.
Okay. It's fun talking to you, David. It could be, I think Wednesday evening could work.
Okay. See you then. And we'll just wrap it up.
Okay.
Okay. This has been great telling you. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Liz.
Hi, David.
I forgot I didn't have my mic over here.
Oh.
I said I'd call you back so we could wrap it up. You were talking about how you became a nurse, and you said there was a story there.
Oh, well, it was, my mother had this catastrophic stroke in the late 70s, and I went down to Pasadena and spent a lot of time sitting at her bedside watching the nurses coming and going, including one aunt of mine who was a nurse, and I was so freaked out, and I had old age, sickness, and death were just completely off my radar at the time, and totally, I had no I had no interest or tolerance of those kind of things, and but I just was sitting there not knowing. My mother couldn't speak. She was delirious. It was just horrible, and I just sat there and totally freaked out and not knowing how to relate to her or what to do or anything, and watching these nurses coming in, and I was so impressed and moved by their how they were with my mother, and I just decided I want to be that way. I want to be able to walk into the room with somebody who's delirious and can't speak and half paralyzed and know how to talk to them and be with them. And anyway, and also, I mean, I felt like I had failed at Zen practice. I had dropped out. I had dropped out of Zen practice at that point, and...
But you were with Mel, right?
Yeah, this was 1979.
And you all were married in like 78?
78, yeah. But I had dropped out, and I just had no direction for my life. I was working, I was just doing various jobs. And so when I decided to go to nursing school, and partly it was as a practice. It was kind of like as a substitute for being a Zen student. I would give myself to being a nurse instead, and kind of in the spirit of monks who used to go to sit in cemeteries to come to terms with death, and I just wanted to come to terms with sickness and know how to handle things, and So,
except unlike the monks who would go to a graveyard to contemplate death or whatever, you were helping people.
Well, yeah, and that was part of it too. Part of my practice was that I was just going to go in there and be as good a nurse as I could possibly be.
So what type of nurse were you?
Well, I ended up actually being a pediatric nurse. I worked at Children's in Oakland, which in a certain way was sort of a cop-out because I wasn't dealing with old age. But when I was in nursing...
Well, it doesn't matter.
No, when I was in nursing school and I did my clinical rotation at Children's Hospital, I just fell in love with the place and decided that was where I wanted to work. So, and that's where I worked for, because I was 40 when I graduated, so I didn't become a nurse early on. So I worked there for my whole 26-year career at Children's Hospital in Oakland.
So I beg to say, working with children is not a cop-out if you're a nurse rather than working with old people. I think it's a better choice. Leave us old people. Just put us on a iceberg and set us out. Yeah. Well, Suzuki Roshi, when he, after World War II, he wanted to do something to help society. And so he considered working with prisoners and helping them, our ex-convicts, people who just gotten out, or helping children. And he decided, children, they're the hope for the future. And so he started one and then eventually another preschool, I think is what we call it. And they're very active still. I've been to one of them, And that's where he meets her, his
Oh,
wife.
that's where he met her?
Yeah. Well, he
Oh.
didn't meet her there. She was, she was running one over in Shizuoka, and she'd been running it for years through the war.
Oh.
And he knew her, and he knew of her, and no, he hadn't met her. He knew of her. Somebody told him to meet her. Maybe, maybe a doctor who was like a patron of his, or maybe it wasn't a doctor. I'm not sure. It says in Crooked Cucumber.
Was he already? He was already the
yeah, he was the Jushoku, the abbot of Rinsoin, and so he went over to Yaizu, and a woman took him over there to introduce him to her. And, she's very unusual for Japanese. She made fun of him, but she called him a handsome monk right off. Anyway, he came over and asked her if she'd be the principal of this. These terms. She said, "What? Are you kidding? I'm dedicated my life to this school, I protected these children through the whole war. I'm not going to leave them." But he just kept coming back. And he said, there's other qualified people that can do that. And they had other people in mind to take her place. Things are done. He wasn't doing it on his own. Whoever, maybe his godfather or something.
So how was she very unusual? You said she was a very unusual person. How outspoken? Outspoken. Japanese women aren't outspoken.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she's really unusual. I remember being at Rinso-in. Oh, and then while she was still living in America, and I said to Hoitsu and Chitose, we were talking. I said, "Well, when Mitsu comes back, will she live here?" Chitose went, no. She it wouldn't work for her to be here. They're pretty frank with me. Yeah. No, she's, I had, she joined a dinner. I had dinner with these men who had been Suzuki's, like his students during the war. Young men would come stay at the temple before they went off to die, or they would come stay at the temple while they were in school before they had to, because everybody was going into the army. The priests were too. They were drafting him. He got out of it. So they formed a little group, after the war to come back and meet at Rinso-in and to, because it was such a special place during the war where there was a lot more openness and frank discussion. And it was like, they said it was like a beam of light in the darkness.
Wow.
So I had dinner. I'd spent a day, interviewing them, and I had a dinner with them, the three of them, and Mitsu came and joined us.
Oh.
And she was just right in there in the conversation, and very outspoken and just unusual. And something that occasionally Japanese people, well, I can think of two people that commented on one of the most unusual things about Shunryu Suzuki was that Mitsu Suzuki. So both Maizumi and Ryuho Yamada, both Japanese priests, said one of the most unusual things about him was his relationship with his wife. And how close they were and how equal they were.
Oh, wow. I really regret not getting to know her, but, when we lived at Tassajara, in the summers, I think it was just the summers, she came down and taught tea.
Yeah.
And part of my absolute refusal to take on Japanese cultural baggage, I was just so rebellious against that. I was not going to be one of these good girls who studied tea with Mitsu Suzuki. I just
I can understand.
Didn't do it, and then at some point I sort of, it's not that I regretted not taking tea, but I regretted just somehow not finding a way to get to know her, but I never did.
Yeah,
because I was such a renegade.
Well, look, I've done a lot of tea ceremony, and some in America and in Japan, so you can't get out of it. And I am not a fan of tea ceremony. And you know who I'm always, what I like is this temple where I was practicing there in Okayama, they had a type of tea ceremony that's also done where they'll serve 300 people or 150 people, and they have all these women making it, and with the roshi there, and it's like a big social thing, and you're getting all this matcha in these bowls, and it's great, and everybody's getting all jacked up from the caffeine in it. I like that, but I remember when I was first in Japan. In the early time, I stayed for a while in Gifu and near Gifu. First in a little cottage that Kaz Tanahashi owned with a German artist who lived there, and he took me to a temple, and the woman there said, I spoke a little Japanese when I arrived, so the woman there said, "Oh, now I'm going to show you something you've never seen. It's called tea ceremony, cha no yu." And I didn't want to tell her that I had definitely experienced tea ceremony in America, both the Urasenke school and the Emoto Shinke school. But Suzuki didn't like it either. He ran from tea ceremony.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because Oksan was always doing it, and he'd go hide. He'd go over to he'd leave and nothing would make him leave the temple. He always wanted to be at the temple, but if he would have to be their guest for tea ceremony, just on and on and on. And Ogui, who was the priest over at, he was a junior priest over at the Buddhist Churches of America, a block away, said one day Suzuki knocked on his door and said, he came to visit, but then he found out why he was there, to hide from the tea ceremony that was going on.
Oh, my God.
And Lolly Rossett in New York was very close with Edo. And she was with Edo like from the first and helped him get going. And she did tea ceremony in New York. And when Suzuki stayed with her, one of his trips there, she had all her tea ceremony stuff all set out. It was very obvious because they sat zazen in the morning. There was an altar and this and that. And mainly she was used to Edo and Soen Nakagawa, who were very more formal rinzai and dramatic, especially Soen Nakagawa, very dramatic and always doing super Zen stuff. And Suzuki was more relaxed and normal and everything. And but she never, she took him to the home of the wife of the president of U.S. Steel. What was her name? Millie Johnston. She came to Tasarazam, and she did tea ceremony, and she did it for Suzuki and Lolly Rossett in New York. And then he said, thank you very much. That was really wonderful. She said, you like it? I'll do it again. And she did it a second time. And then she wanted to do it a third time. And Lolly said, "Oh, we have an appointment we have to go to now." and then he told her, he said, "Oh, you know how to take care of me. Thank you." And so he never did tea ceremony with her the time he was there. And she said when he left, he thanked her for her tea ceremony. Meaning not doing it.
That's great hearing that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make you feel better?
And it's great hearing that about how she was unusually outspoken for a Japanese woman.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I'd known that way back in the day. Oh,
yeah.
Well. Maybe I could have told her, I'm not taking your tea ceremony class because I refuse to be a nice, good little Japanese girl.
Yeah, well, that's the way Daya was with her. Daya was very close with her. But Daya refused to mend my robes. So Mitsu would.
Oh.
Or Oksan. We always called her Oksan.
Yeah, right. Why did she refuse to mend your robes?
Yeah, I mean,
because she didn't believe in robes?
That wasn't her business.
Oh.
I wasn't gonna. Diane, she was Diane back then. Diane did. It's not my business to sew stuff for my husband.
Oh.
She's very independent.
I used to patch Mel's Kuromo. I patched it until it was there was hardly anything on it that wasn't a patch. It was almost all patches.
Oh, that's
because funny. I was at the time I was a professional seamstress, but also because I really liked it aesthetically. I thought it was just a beautiful robe, even though I disliked the idea of wearing these. I guess those are Chinese. Those Chinese robes that are made to with the sleeves to show that you don't do any labor because they have sleeves that make it so you can't work. And I mean, I just the idea offended me of wearing these Japanese or Chinese robes, but aesthetically, Mel's I think it was silk, his first one. And it was so beautiful, and he looked so wonderful in it that I didn't mind patching it for a while. But then at a certain point, I just said, "Okay, I'm done. I'm not patching your robes anymore." And then other Zendo members took over. Yeah. But I did it for a while.
Yeah.
I used to sew all the robes. All the kuromos. I sewed all the kuromos for all the Zen Center priests in the 70s. I was the only one that knew how to do it. I mean, I didn't do it in the Japanese style. I did it by reverse engineering Mel's. Mel had this kuromo from Japan, and I was a really accomplished seamstress, and I just figured out how to reverse engineer it, and I started making robes, and I made them for all the priests that were priests in the 70s.
You know how they have them in Japan. They're put together with running stitches that they'll actually take them apart.
Yes, I think that's wonderful. I love it. And you take them apart, and then when you put them back together, you put them back together in a different way so that different parts wear out. I mean, I think it's just a wonderful way to deal with clothing, to sort of turn it around. And, but I didn't do it that way. I did it totally American. I sewed it on a sewing machine, and, I
don't know if he did it every time, but I saw Kobuchino take his robe apart to wash it and put it back together.
Yeah, that's what I heard they do in Japan, is that when you wash something, you take it apart, and then you put it back together differently. Yeah.
It's very interesting. Well, then, things don't rip like they do here.
Right. Yeah, things, it's like one little part of something wears out before the rest, like the knees of jeans or something, and then you get rid of them because that one little part. But if you turned them around and put the front of the knees in the back, they would last a lot longer.
Well, their genes wouldn't get, the knees wouldn't wear out because they don't put their knees on the ground, they squat.
Right.
Yeah, somebody just ran a Suzuki story by me, and it said he was on his hands and knees scrubbing the floor in one of the public restrooms at Page Street. I said, well, maybe. I think, I really don't. I think it's a story that gravitated from him cleaning his own toilet room, his own restroom, before his own cabin cleaner can get to it. But doesn't matter. It's the sort of thing he'd do. But he wouldn't be on it. I said he wouldn't be on his hands and knees. They don't do that. He'd be squatting. And that was when I was in a temple in Japan. I really envied them. We'd be working in the yard and trimming all these weeds and stuff, and they'd never get on their knees, And that was. I try when every morning I pick up the leaves in our courtyard and out in front of the house, and it's sort of a thing here to sweep in front of your house. But I try not to sweep. I try to pick up each leaf individually by squatting down because it's good exercise. It depends. But if there's too many, I can do it for a while. But if there's too many, it just takes so much more time. I'll use the broom, and the broom is not like an American broom. It's long strands of what? Some sort of dried grass that are hard. Yeah, bristles, just like bristles on our broom, except heavier and longer. When you and Mel got together romantically, you were a student, right?
Yeah, I had been a student I had been a Zen student for about a year and I can't remember, a year and a half, something like that.
Yeah, and you saw him come back. You saw him in there. What are you doing here?
Yeah, and then he went back to Tassajara, and then I think that fall he came back to Berkeley. He left.
Yeah,
he moved back to Berkeley.
So you were a student at the Berkeley Zendo, and he was like the priest there.
Right.
Was he ordained yet as a priest? Let's see.
Yes.
Yeah, he was ordained early.
Yeah,
like 69.
He had been the Shuso at Tassajara.
Right.
69,
I was there
70,
that practice.
Yeah.
So there you were, a student in a temple, and you had an affair with the priest. Now, this could have. Did you ever consider suing him for abuse? This is the sort of thing that they have enormous scandals about.
Yeah, I know. I know.
God, that's endless. Yeah, like you can control people's, gravitating toward each other.
Yeah. This was before any of that stuff started flying around. This was just after the 60s, and when anything goes.
I remember Teigen saying to me, "Who am I supposed to date? All I know is the women who come to my temple." But finally, he did marry a woman who wasn't from that. I think they met through computer dating. And that worked out quite well for him. But all right, so then you get together with Mel, and you all were married, within a few years.
We lived together for 7 years before we got married.
So here you were, cohabiting with the priest of the Berkeley Zen Center. while you had, and then getting married, and then, but he couldn't save you from your dilemma with practice and Japaneseness.
No, we had a lot of conversations about my problems with practice, and I don't know, debates or some, I don't know, not argument, debates about all this. Yeah, and he was very accepting of my resistance to it all. And then he didn't.
Yeah.
I was worried that he might kick me out when I quit sitting, but he didn't.
Yeah, I would not want to have a relationship where we had an obligation to each other to practice together and stuff like that. Katrinka and I both sit, but we don't sit together. We don't sit at the same time. We don't. I mean, we might tell each other, "Oh, I sat this morning, said blah 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 blah," but it's none of my business what she does, and none of her business what I do. Other things, it's her business.
Was she a Zen student in California? Did you meet her through Zen?
No, I met her through. She worked at the Sand Dollar in Stinson Beach. I'd see her there.
Oh.
She said she remembers me from North Beach. Yeah, she worked for which Yvonne Rand's former husband, Ken Rand, owned the Sand Dollar.
Oh.
And, I was living half time in Bolinas, so I'd stop by there on my way home. And then she became manager of the Pelican Inn later. So in 2004, I was walking my son Clay and some boys who were like, how old were they? Clay, 12, 13 years old, walking with them down to Muir Beach. And we'd stop, at the entrance to the Pelican Inn, see what was happening. And she was standing there, but they're so busy. It was a Sunday. She's just standing there with menus in front, directing people to wait in the lawn and bar and this and that. And I said hi to her, and she said hi, and I went, And I said, boys, you can go on. And I haven't been with another woman since. But so I was living in John Tarrant's barn, and he's the teacher for the Pacific Zen Institute. And Katrinka before long, she was sitting. I mean, we go once a week there. I didn't really practice with John, but I'd go once a week to his meetings, and then before long she was running his sessions.
Katrinka was?
Yeah.
Oh. Huh.
Yeah, she there's a teacher who in his group who's quite experienced. David Weinberg. David Weinberg.
David Weinberg? He's from the Berkeley.
David Weinstein. See, I get him confused. And he has an Oakland group, and she does. She works on koans with him now. Yeah. So Goose has arrived. But
okay.
Anyway, look, it's really been fun talking with you and having all the email exchanges.
Yeah.
Thanks for the stuff you've sent.
All right. Yeah, it's been great talking to you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Liz, it's been a pleasure until we meet again.
Yes. Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. So thank you very much, Liz Horowitz. That was great. Really enjoyed talking with you. Hey, I want to say something. You know that book she was talking about that turned her on to Zen? And I thought it would be, because it was really early, I thought it would be Zen Flesh and Bones, which came out in 1957 and had vignettes and, koans and teaching stories and all that. Paul Reps put together with Nyogen Senzaki. But no, that wasn't it, she said. I thought, what would that have been? And so she sent me some pictures of it. And I said, well, there's the name, Zen Buddhism. And, I see that it's published by Peter Pauper Press in 1959. That's early. It's a small book, almost like a little pamphlet. It was like, then I went on Amazon and I found it. Zen Buddhism, an introduction to Zen with stories, parables, and koan riddles told by the Zen masters with cuts from old Chinese ink paintings. The Peter Pauper Press, Mount Vernon, New York. And it had as author, I told her, hey, well, who's the author? And she said, there's nothing. I sent you everything. And it's a I said, well, where's the copyright page? She said, there, it's on the upper left. All it said was copyright Peter Pauper Press. Amazon had Peter Pauper Press as the publisher and the author. So there is a Peter Pauper Press still going since 1928. So they put this little book out. The one story she told, I'm going to read to you the way she saw it. Because she sent it to me, a scan of that page. So here it is. Buddha told this parable. A traveler, fleeing a tiger who was chasing him, ran till he came to the edge of a cliff. There he caught hold of a thick vine and swung himself over the edge. Above him, the tiger snarled. Below him, he heard another one, and behold, there was another tiger peering up at him. The vine suspended him midway between two tigers. Two mice, a white mouse and a black mouse, began to gnaw at the vine. He could see they were quickly eating it through. Then in front of him on the cliffside, he saw a luscious bunch of grapes. Holding on to the vine with one hand, he reached and picked a grape with the other. How delicious! So, reading that, just that changed her life. That's pretty rad. It's pretty hokey telling of that story. I've never heard it like that. And saying Buddha told this? Really? I think actually, I want to get this book now. I like these old ones because they turned me on. Although I don't think I ever saw this one, but that was so long ago. I might have thumbed through it. It's only like 69 pages or something. Anyway, that's neat. The way I remember hearing it is that it was a monk, and I think a tiger, yeah, and I think it was just rocks below that the monk would crash onto if he fell. And the vine wasn't going to hold forever, and there was a mouse chewing on it. And a strawberry is the way I heard it first. Yeah, same story. It's cool. All right, and it turned her on, so good for them. Thank you, Peter Pauper Press. It's weird, though, to put out a book without crediting anyone. Peter Pauper Press. Maybe they're like Catholic monks or very humble people. Quakers. I don't know. Okay. So, appreciate it, Liz, and look forward to getting more materials from you. And maybe we'll check back with you after a while. you renegade, you. This has been a Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sanur with Dogget Bandita, Feline Cuchita, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.